Nilotic peoples are peoples indigenous to the Nile Valley that speak Nilotic languages, which comprise a large subgroup of the Nilo-Saharan languages spoken in South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, and northern Tanzania. In a more general sense, the Nilotic peoples include all descendants of the original Nilo-Saharan speakers. Among these are the Luo, Sara, Masai, Kalenjin, Dinka, Nuer, Shilluk, Ateker, and the Maa-speaking peoples, each of which is a cluster of several ethnic groups. Nilotes form the majority of the population in South Sudan, an area that is believed to be their original point of dispersal. They also constitute the second largest group of peoples inhabiting the African Great Lakes region, with a notable presence in southwestern Ethiopia as well. Nilotes primarily adhere to Christianity and traditional faiths, including the Dinka religion. Name. The terms Nilotic and Nilote were previously used as racial subclassifications, based on anthropological observations of the distinct body morphology of many Nilotic speakers. These perceptions were later widely discarded by 20th-century social scientists, but today they again find support in population genetics. These terms are now mainly used to distinguish Nilotic people based on ethnic linguistic affiliation. Etymologically, the terms Nilotic and Nilote derive from the Nile Valley, specifically the Upper Nile and its tributaries, where most Sudanese Nilo-Saharan speaking people live. Origins and history. A proto-Nilotic unity, separate from an earlier undifferentiated Eastern Sudanic unity, is assumed to have emerged by the 3rd millennium BC. The emergence of the proto-Nilotes may have been connected with the domestication of livestock. The Eastern Sudanic unity must have been considerably earlier still, perhaps around the 5th millennium BC. The original locus of the early Nilotic speakers was presumably east of the Nile in what is now South Sudan. The proto-Nilotes of the 3rd millennium BC were pastoralists, while the neighbors, the proto-Central Sudanic peoples, were mostly agriculturalists. By about the 12th century, Luo peoples occupied the area that now lies in eastern Bahr el-Ghazal. A Nilotic expansion southward, accompanied by ethnic and linguistic diversification, took place from about the 14th century. The reason was presumably the Islamization of Sudan and the eventual collapse of the Nubian Christian kingdom of Al-Ordia. Most of the Luo moved to nearly all the countries neighboring Sudan, resulting in many separate groups with variation in language and tradition as each group moved further away from the kin. A branch of the Luo, the Shilluk nation, comprising more than 100 clans and sub-tribes, was founded by a chief named Nyakengo sometime in the middle of the 15th century. There evolved a nation with a feudal-style system. Nyakengo and his nation moved northward along the Nile, towards Kush. The rest of the Luo groups rejected Nyakengo's idea and kept a south and westwards migration. The further spread of the Nilote to the modern territories was a process spanning about the 15th to 18th centuries. Thus, the Masai, according to their own oral history, migrated south from the lower Nile Valley north of Lake Turkana in about the 15th century, arriving in a long trunk of land stretching from what is now northern Kenya to what is now central Tanzania during the 17th and 18th centuries. Ethnic, linguistic divisions. Languages. Linguistically, Nilotic people are divided into 3 subgroups. Eastern Nilotic, spoken by Nilotic populations in southwestern Ethiopia, eastern South Sudan, northeastern Uganda, western Kenya and northern Tanzania. Includes languages like Turkana and Maasai, Bari Teso Lotuko Maa. Southern Nilotic, spoken by Nilotic populations in western Kenya, northern Tanzania and eastern Uganda, includes Kalenjin and Datog. Kalenjin Omotic Datuga. Western Nilotic, spoken by Nilotic populations in South Sudan, northeastern Congo, northern Uganda, southwestern Kenya, northern Tanzania and southwestern Ethiopia, includes Dinka and Luo. Dinka Nuer Luo. Ethnic groups Nilotic people constitute the bulk of the population of South Sudan. The largest of the Sudanese Nilotic peoples is the Dinka, which includes as many as 25 ethnic subdivisions. The next largest group is the Nuer, followed by the Shilluk. The Nilotic people in Uganda include the Luo, Ateker, Lango and Kumam. In East Africa, the Nilotes are often subdivided into three general groups. The Plain Nilotes. They speak Maa languages and include the Masai, Samburu and Turkana. The River Lake Nilotes, the Joluo, who are part of the larger Luo group. The Highland Nilotes, subdivided into two groups, the Kalenjin and the Datog Kalenjin. Elgayo, Kipsigis, Marakwet, Nandi, Pokot, Sabro, Ateker and Tugan. Datog, represented mainly by the Barabag and small clusters of other Datog speakers. Culture and religion. Most Nilotes practice pastoralism. Some tribes are also known for a tradition of cattle raiding. Nilotes in East Africa have, through interaction, adopted many customs and practices from neighboring southern Cushitic groups. The latter include the age-set system of social organization, circumcision, and vocabulary terms. In terms of religious beliefs, Nilotes primarily adhere to traditional faiths and Christianity. There is a pantheon of deities in the Dinka religion. The supreme creator god is Nilotic, who is the god of the sky and rain, and the ruler of all the spirits. He is believed to be present in all of creation, and to control the destiny of every human, plant and animal on earth. Nilotic is also known as Jak, Juong Adokan by other Nilotic groups, such as the Nuer and Shilluk. Deng is the sky god of rain and fertility, empowered by Nilotic. Deng's mother is Abuk, the patron goddess of gardening and all women, represented by a snake. Garing, another deity, is believed or assumed by some Dinka to be a god suppressed by Deng, whose spirits can cause most Dinka women and some men to scream. The term Jok refers to a group of ancestral spirits. In the Lotuko mythology, the chief god is called Ajok. He is generally seen as kind and benevolent, but can be angered. He once reportedly answered a woman's prayer for the resurrection of her son. Her husband, however, was angry and re-killed the child. According to the Lotuko religion, Ajok was annoyed by his actions and swore to never resurrect any Lotuko again, and in this manner, death was said to have become permanent. Genetics. Y-DNA Y chromosome study by Wood et al. Tested various populations in Africa for paternal lineages, including 26 Maa-speaking and 9 Luo from Kenya and 9 Alur from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The signature Nilotic paternal marker haplogroup A3b2 was observed in 27% of the Maa-speaking, 22% of the Alur and 11% of the Luo. Haplogroup B, another characteristically Nilotic paternal marker according to Gomez et al., was found in 22% of Wood et al. Luo samples and 8% of the studied Maa-speaking. The E1b1b haplogroup was also observed in 50% of the Maa-speaking, which is indicative of substantial gene flow into this population from Cushitic males. In addition, 67% of the Alur samples possessed the sub-Saharan E2 haplogroup. Another study by Hassan et al. Analyzed the Y-DNA of populations in the Sudan region, with various local Nilotic groups included for comparison. The researchers found the signature Nilotic A and B clades to be the most common paternal lineages amongst the Nilo-Saharan speakers, except those inhabiting western Sudan, where an appreciable North African influence was noted. Haplogroup A was observed amongst 62% of Dinka, 53.3% of Shilluk, 46.4% of Nuer, 33.3% of Nuer, 31.3% of Fur, and 18.8% of Masai. Haplogroup B was found in 50% of Nuer, 26.7% of Shilluk, 23% of Dinka, 14.3% of Nuer, 3.1% of Fur, and 3.1% of Masai. The E1B1B clade was also observed in 71.9% of the Masai, 59.4% of the Fur, 39.3% of the Nuer, 20% of the Shilluk, 16.7% of the Nuer, and 15% of the Dinka. Hassan et al. Attributed the atypically high frequencies of the haplogroup in the Masai to either a recent population bottleneck that likely altered the community's original haplogroup diversity, or to geographical proximity to E1B1B's place of origin in North Africa, where the researchers suggest that the clade might have been brought to Sudan from after the progressive desertification of the Sahara around 6,000–8,000 years ago. Hen et al. Similarly observed Afro-Asiatic influence in the Nilotic Datog of northern Tanzania, 43% of whom carried the M293 subclade of E1B1B. mtDNA. Unlike the paternal DNA, the maternal lineages of Nilotes in general show low to negligible amounts of Afro-Asiatic and other extraneous influences. An mtDNA study by Castri et al. Examined the maternal ancestry of various Nilotic populations in Kenya, with Turkana, Samburus, Masai and Luo individuals sampled. Almost all of the tested Nilotes belonged to various sub-Saharan macrohaplogroup L subclades, including L0, L2, L3, L4 and L5. Low levels of maternal gene flow from North Africa and the Horn of Africa were also observed in a few groups, mainly via the presence of mtDNA haplogroup M and haplogroup I lineages in about 12.5% of the Masai and 7% of the Samburu samples, respectively. Autosomal DNA. The autosomal DNA of Nilotic peoples has been examined in a comprehensive study by Tishkoff et al. On the genetic affiliations of various populations in Africa. According to the researchers, Nilotes generally form their own sub-Saharan genetic cluster. The authors also found that certain Nilotic populations in the eastern Great Lakes region, such as the Masai, showed some additional Afro-Asiatic affinities due to repeated assimilation of Cushitic-speaking peoples over the past 5,000 years. Physiology. Physically, Nilotes are noted for the typically very dark skin color and slender, tall bodies. They often possess exceptionally long limbs, particularly vis-a-vis the distal segments. This characteristic is thought to be a climatic adaptation to allow the bodies to shed heat more efficiently. Sudanese Nilotes are regarded as one of the tallest peoples in the world. Roberts and Bainbridge reported average values of 182.6 centimeters for height and 58.8 kilograms for weight in a sample of Sudanese Shilluk. Another sample of Sudanese Dinka had a stature-weight ratio of 181.9 centimeters, 58.0 kilograms, with an extremely ectomorphic somatotype of 1.6 to 3.5–6.2. In terms of facial features, Hano observed that the nasal profile most common amongst Nilotic populations is broad, with characteristically high index values ranging from 86.9 to 92.0. He also reported that lower nasal indices are often found amongst Nilotes who inhabit the more southerly Great Lakes region, such as the Masai, a fact which he attributed to genetic differences. Additionally, it has been remarked that the Nilotic groups presently inhabiting the African Great Lakes region are sometimes also smaller in stature than those residing in the Sudan region. Campbell et al. Recorded measurements of 172.0 centimeters (53.6 kilograms) in a sample of agricultural Turkana in northern Kenya, and of 174.9 centimeters (53.0 kilograms) in pastoral Turkana. Hano similarly listed a height of 172.7 centimeters for Masai in southern Kenya, with an extreme trunk-leg length ratio of 47.7. Many Nilotic groups also excel in long and middle distance running. It has been argued that this sporting prowess stems from their exceptional running economy, which in turn is a function of slim body morphology and slender legs. A study by Physiology et al., questioning 404 elite Kenyan distance runners, found that 76% of the international class respondents hailed from the Kalenjin ethnic group and that 79% spoke a Nilotic language. Bibliography: Lionheart, Godfrey, Divinity and Experience, The Religion of the Dinka, Oxford University Press, ISBN 0198234058.